only y'all could see during the commercial breaks, President Trump has called New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani a, quote, communist lunatic. Mamdani, who is actually a democratic socialist, has called the president, quote, a fascist who betrayed the nation. So we all assumed their first face-to-face would be a knockdown drag-out in the Oval Office on Friday, right?
I expect to be helping him, not hurting him. I think this mayor can do some things that are going to be really great. I want him to do a great job, and we'll help him do a great job. I'll be cheering for him.
Yeah, you are as confused as we are. As you can see, there were no fireworks at all, but a moment of praise over and over and over again, and a promise between two guys from Queens. And the president even gave Mamdani a pass to call him a fascist to his face. That's crazy.
Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say yes.
Okay.
So, okay. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
Baby,
That's okay. I'm a fascist.
to do with the MSNBC are back with that's charm. When you have charmed someone so much you can call them a fascist to their face, that's political charm. Vaughn.
He also stumped all of those right-wing outlets. Jack Posobiec,
Yes.
right-wing ideologue, like comes in and tries to ask him questions. They ask him about like jihad is coming, and Trump is just like, yeah, no,
he's not a jihad. He's not a jihadist.
Somewhere at least Stefanik was like, no.
Please stop. And also the NRSC, every Republican running next year.
He was supposed to be the boogeyman.
Vaughn, what happened here? What happened here? Because there is no human being that was expecting what we saw yesterday. I think including the president. He seemed fluffed and charmed.
What happened that we didn't see?
Well, how about this?
Why didn't he go to
Zelensky? Could we go to Zohran first? Because I feel like more and more of America is paying attention to Zohran Mamdani with every passing month, and like this is the moment where I go, it's like we weren't expecting this, but then all of a sudden I'm sitting there and I go back to the conversation I had with him on primary day up in New York City back in June when he beat Andrew Cuomo decisively, and I asked him the very specific question: what would your win today in this Democratic primary? What would you tell Democrats nationally that your win would represent? Right? And I thought that maybe he'd give something, this is the next generation. He's 34 years old. Yeah. The next generation of Democratic politics. People want, positivity. Instead, he was just like, the people want affordability to be discussed. And he's the one that propelled the word affordability into our political dialogue here in 2025. And so you fast forward all these months to this moment. Well, that's exactly what he did. Zohran Mamdani was just Zohran Mamdani and came in there with the clear mission and somebody who is clearly compelling and impressed the president of the United States. I think that's what happened.
We had Richie Torres on the show months ago, and we asked him about Zohran Mamdani. He said the meeting that they had kind of changed his mind. He didn't endorse him, but he pulled back from criticizing him. And all those business leaders who were sherpa'd into meeting with Zohran Mamdani also, at the very least, stayed a little bit quiet during the general election about it.
And am I wrong in thinking that all the touching of the president, all the being charmed and everything,
meeting.
It seemed to me, given the president's comments on affordability and the affordability and how Republicans got their behinds beat on that issue in the elections this month, that the president is actually clinging to Mamdani because he is, to your point, the poster child for affordability and how to win on that issue. And that man, the president, the one seated in the chair with Mamdani towering over him, is underwater when it comes to his handling of the economy. And that's one of the reasons why he won.
Yeah. They can help each other. And it was kind of embarrassing for Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, who are fellow New Yorkers who have kind of been running away, haven't wanted to bear hug him at all. Literally, they're in the same party, and yet look who is the worst.
That was exactly what I was. Why is Trump getting cozier with Mamdani than Democratic leaders?
So I think that the Mamdani mindset has to be that everyone knows that sometimes if you're the last person in Trump's ear and you have a positive conversation with him, that it can come out in a positive way for your your policy end goals. I think it makes it easier to be the mayor of New York City trying to do a massive and towering agenda that has some pretty big pitfalls in how you're going to accomplish it policy-wise, if you also don't have to deal with the fact that the White House is trying to sideswipe you by pulling federal funding and basically creating fires when you're just trying to chart your own path. I think that's the obvious Mamdani. I actually think you're right with Trump reading the tea leaves on affordability. And knowing that this has been one of the messengers around affordability in a salient way, I would also argue that Spanberger and Cheryl and others were really big in putting that mantle on the national stage. But I think that he knows that if he alienates a guy who is known for free buses and affordable rent, that yes, there's a part of his base that will respond to him, but he's always going to keep that 30 some odd, 35 or so percent. They're not going anywhere.
They've been convinced of a lot of stuff.
You got to pull folks in.
Well, actually, that's an excellent thing that Mamdani did during their conversation. He kept saying, your voters voted for me.
Yes.
And so, of course, I'm going to be governing for them.
And Trump brought up the Bernie of it all, right? In 2016, where a lot of Bernie bros actually moved over to Trump. What does this portend? Because at the end of the day, this happened. It was a little weird. There was a lot of touching. There was a lot of smiling.
Actually, it doesn't mean anything.
At the end of the day, it might not mean anything, right? It might just be a strange moment that happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Mamdani actually gets sworn in. He starts to do what he wants to do. Trump sends in, or the National Guard is there, or ICE does something, or the CBP does something, pisses Mamdani off, and then he talks about it. Then we're back to square one with Trump. You can't really, Mamdani's not banking on this relationship being rosy the whole time that he's in office.
No, but I think that also, what does it portend? That I think that there's also going to be a tension for Democrats and Republicans when it comes to the media. Because there was one moment in there where Donald Trump explicitly said, he brought up a lot of things to me that I hadn't heard were his positions, like free busing, building more affordable housing. And he goes, I just hear the other stuff, right? But if you read the New York Post, and if you're watching, Real America's Voice or Fox, you're going to hear a lot of crazy things about Zohran Mamdani. And so suddenly, I think that was also a moment for Democrats to be like, hey, there is receptivity potentially even among Republican voters, Trump voters, because, well, if they get our message, we could win them over. For goodness sakes, in the Oval Office, we even won over Donald Trump. So that can go to even more than just 1 out of 10 Trump voters, but it could even mean sort of hey, we just got to plow through the difficult media culture here in the way in which people are receiving politics today here in America.
And apparently you can call him a fascist to his face and he still would like your
Says
policy.
he's been called worse.
With permission.
I feel like this is kind of like the front stabbing White House. It's like Return of Scaramucci a little bit.
Yes.
Stab me in the front.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I do feel like he had a MAGA Democratic Socialist Venn diagram moment of realization. But Ali Vitale, Vaughn Hilliard, we're going to have to end it there, unfortunately. The party will have an after party.